I'm Aniki Nippon. Today I would like to discuss something about this commercial that I've been seeing. It's called Slavery Sucks, and I don't necessarily know the content of this event. However, I know it's discussing the connection between trafficking, human trafficking and slavery and so on. But I want to add for right now that I've seen the commercials and there are some nasty insinuations that are going on with the commercials. You have Ashton Kutcher, who is a celebrity who says, "Real men don't buy sex.
Real men don't buy girls."
But the problem is, with all these commercials and all these things that have been happening, there's an organization for the The problem with all these organizations is there's an organization that actually was sponsored, co-sponsored by the Super Bowl committee or whatever, and this organization is basically tying in that child prostitution is going on, and it's going on in greater numbers than they're showing. I mean, they say it's such a nationwide problem because, you know, sporting events and prostitution go hand in hand. Yeah, but they're insinuating that children are being prostituted at an alarming rate or something like that, and it's not going on. I mean, statistically speaking, it's not congruent. There is nothing that serious. I mean, it's maybe like one child out of 1,000, 2,000, maybe even 3,000 prostitutes. I'm just throwing that number out there because I don't know exactly know what the numbers are. But what I'm saying is the rarity of a minor to be engaged in prostitution at such sporting events as this is so pale in comparison to the other thousands of women or men as well that are prostituting themselves on the streets trying to earn a buck. But the underlying portion of my video here today is about how the feminists or the conservatives, or maybe both, actually exploit information in order to make themselves a story. You see, all you have to do is basically tie in slavery and sex, and guess what? You got a brew for something that's politically scandalous and something that more people are willing to believe on the dime without having any evidence whatsoever, than actually having evidence for it and actually having it being true. The nasty insinuation with all these little programs is that, number one, prostitution equals slavery. Slavery equals prostitution. Child prostitution is the same as adult prostitution because neither one of them has a choice. And if it's occurring in a third world country, it must be occurring here, which is a very false dichotomy. It's like comparing apples and oranges. You're talking about a country like ours, who has a very strong military and law enforcement presence, and then going to maybe Cambodia, where the military and law enforcement presence is not as well funded. Perhaps the police really don't care as much. You know, something like that. Maybe prostitution's illegal, but it's kind of shrugged off, and it's not as important as a endeavor anyways. But also, the thing that people don't realize about trafficking in persons is it usually goes to poorer countries to richer countries. So the people being trafficked are not going to be trafficked out of the United States of America to Bangladesh. It's going to happen from Bangladesh to the United States of America that these women or men or whoever gets trafficked out of. So you got to understand these basic dynamics that are going on. But at every turn of the way, you have to also understand that the problem with prostitution and slavery is that there is a very difficult connection to be made. If you're going to accuse somebody of human trafficking, it's going to be a very difficult charge to prove. And I don't want to demean the United Nations' ambition of cracking down on human trafficking, but it also depends on the country's political will. if I were to, I know I was trained when I was in the military that, you should report human trafficking going on in any sort of circumstances. If you see a shady alley and there's guys standing outside of a bar, you should report that as suspicious activity. But the problem with it is, it could be a bouncer. There's no real sure signs. Whenever I was receiving this training, it's like, there's no real sure way of telling who's actually being trafficked and how, and whether or not the host country that we're reporting these incidences to are actually going to enforce the laws that they actually have. I mean, it really does depend on the law enforcement community. So again, I mean, even if you report these crimes, and the other thing is, I don't mean to demean the organizations that actually do want to put out awareness, but if they think that awareness equals funding for law enforcement or actually cracking down on the actual issues, it's not going to work. These nonprofit organizations that pop up overnight and say, like, slavery sucks, it's like, yeah, everybody agrees, but what the fuck are you going to do about it? And they don't actually do anything about it. That's my problem, is that these organizations, they talk about the problem and make money off of talking about the problem, but they don't make money and then actually fund actually fixing the darn problem. When they do, it tends to be in very weird ways that they do. It's like, well, we funded a shelter in the United States, but the problem's in Bangladesh. What are you going to do? I mean, these shelters and these programs that they talk about, you really need to look into the organizations that you're funding and you're saying that you're for. So anyways, hopefully this program was to enlighten you on the kinds of exploitations that's done onto people who are watching these programs instead of the actual quote-unquote slaves themselves. I hope you enjoyed. Take care and have a good day.